Hello, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on SI and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider podcast. It's great to be with you today. This is Observations from Training Camp Practice Report number 8. It's been great to be with you, and I appreciate all the time you've taken to be with me. We are going to dig in today on what we saw from training camp, what stood out at training camp, and we're going to really dig into about the battles, the aches, the pains, and the drama. The battles, the aches, the pains, and the drama. So I want to start really talking about the aches. And you got to remember now, this was the fourth day in pads. Pads started on Monday. So, there is a lot of guys that are hurting. Doesn't mean that they're injured. And so what happens is you'll see a player, maybe if the fans are here, who isn't practicing one day, and it's not that if there's a sustained major injury, we'll tell you about it. The problem is everybody's hurting right now. This is a very physical camp. That's why you always hear me say every year on the first day that this is the healthiest the team's going to be till the season's over. Football is just a very violent game. And even when you're just pushing before pads come on, um, it's still large human beings pushing each other around. So there's absolutely aches going on. Everybody is hurting. And that's just the nature of it. So I wouldn't read in too much when you hear him, this guy didn't practice today, or this guy, left practice early but came back. And that's just the nature of the beast of this time of year. It's just literally part of the aches that it's just it's part of the aches of this. Everybody is hurting. When you talk about pain, I think it's one thing that's really important to talk about. There is a lot that goes into a competitive camp like this. And there is a lot of brutal hitting. I can tell you that it is measured, but it is the most physical camp I've seen in my 6 I've covered of the Raiders. Um, and there's some pain being inflicted. There's guys hitting and smacking each other. And I think that's very interesting. Now, I've seen some other camps where it is longer. The physicality is longer, but this has been a very physically painful, and I say painful because of the hitting process, camp. And I think one thing is when you allow a ton of it, guys measure it. They go and it's measured. And there's been some camps here that were a lot more physical, but for longer periods of time is what I mean. But they are controlling it. So when they're allowed to hit, they're hitting and they're going after one another. And there's some times that you can just see some really clean, good hits, and ooh, that one's going to leave a bruise. It's going to be there the rest of the season. So there's the normal aches of the season, but then there is the pain of the brutality of it. Now, it's going to go up a massive amount when they get into joint practices. It's going to go up a lot when the preseason games really start going on. But there are aches and there are pains that are going on because of a physical practice, because of the intensity of it, and that has really stood out to me. And in the periods where they are letting them to go after each other, they are going after each other, even in days where there isn't pads. And I guess I say today was the fourth. It was the fourth day that pads were allowed, but today they were in shells. But still, there were times that it was extremely physical, and that's just the nature of it. It's just how it works. It's how you see things operate. And again, there were times today when not everybody you know was being held back, but I'm not implying that, but there were certainly days of physical. And then again, some days you come out, you'll see some guys in pads and some in shells, where maybe coaches say, hey, it's not worth getting you an extended injury that'll go into the year. You just go in shells today. You don't get to go in the aggressive parts. So don't read into any of that, but just understand there are aches and pains. Let's get into uh, the battles. Let's start at linebacker, where coming in, we thought the weakest position in this team was corner, and second was linebacker. Um, I'm watching this extremely close. I'm very impressed. Landon Roberts is everything we thought he was. He's the real deal. Devin White playing out of his mind. But I'll tell you what, Jamal Adams and Jermaine Pratt are playing extremely well. And again, Landon was not a concern, but Devin, Jermaine, and um, Devin and Jermaine and Jamal were all guys coming out off of injury or subpar seasons who have all played at a very high level. It's been extremely interesting to watch. There's a lot of experienced guys who at some point in their career have performed at a very high level now. And so you infuse them into that room where they are all competing. And a thread throughout this camp that has really surprised me at every position. I've seen it occasionally at one, but not at every, when I've covered other teams. Everybody in this team is competing, but everybody's helping everybody. It's been really interesting to watch. The DB room, Jacorian Bennett is a guy that, he's got the skill set. He's performed at a high level. He's a smart kid. He's a good kid, really good kid. I really like him a lot. But he's got to find some consistency now. He's getting some reps with the threes and the twos and the ones. But I'm a little surprised to see him getting some reps with the threes. And that tells you, okay, Pete wants competition. He also wants consistency. And that's something I'm watching. But that room, that corner room, I am not as concerned of it being as weak as I thought it was going to be. But I still believe it is the biggest concern position-wise on this team. I don't think it's as concerning as I thought it was when camp was starting, but I do think it's still the biggest concern. Darian Porter, Cameron Richardson, Eric Stokes have all played really well. Then the rest of the guys are vying for some consistency. And that's where it's at right now, where it's just battles. If you were coming to practice at Allegiant Stadium at 1 o'clock on Saturday, and you said to me, Uncle Hondo, tell me real quick, what am I watching? You're watching linebackers, defensive backs, you're watching running backs. And when I say defensive backs, it's corners more than anything. But let's dig in real quick at running back, where I told you yesterday I thought Zamir was ahead of Sincere. After today, I think Sincere is ahead of Zamir. That tells you how close it is that one bad practice, a guy can move up the chart. That is how competitively close a number, not all, but a number of these battles are. They are very competitively close, where one guy's mistake can bump him down the chart, and one guy's big play can move him up. Now, Raheem Mostert was back, as you know. His wife had a baby. I don't think there's any doubt it's Ashton and Raheem, 1-2. But Sincere and Zamir battling for 3. I think they both make the team, but still the higher on the chart, the more reps you're going to get. And the thing that I think people need to really zero in on, though, that's very vitally important in a lot of ways, but very vitally important, is this. When battles are that close and there's this much of the season left, preseason games, and more importantly than any of the preseason games, the joint practices against the very talented 49ers, you're going to really see guys make moves. There are some positions on this team that I think are locks. Okay, Ashton as RB1. is a lock. Do I think Raheem is a lock at RB2? I think he's close, but no, I could see a Zamir or Sincere just blowing open the gates and earning that spot. Do I think it's probable? No. But so there are some places that are locks, some places that are close to locks, and some that are wide open battles. And those preseason games and those inter team practices are going to be so vital, critically vital, and going to really matter a lot. I'd want to talk a little bit about both second strings today. I thought both second strings looked really good yesterday. I thought the defense and the offense both looked really, really great, the defensive and the offensive secondary yesterday. I don't think either one of them looked really good today. I don't think it was a great practice for the team, but I thought the second strings struggled. Now, part of that is you're 8 days in now. Everybody's hurting. Everybody's tired. Long days. You're here early. You stay late for meetings, and guys are really, really tired. But this is where the mental competition stays strong, to stay in that mental mindset, to compete through it. Pete wants that. He's desirous of that. And so it's normal this time of camp for things to get sloppy. It happens every year on every team. The championship teams are the ones that fight through it. What I thought was really cool today is there were some guys making mental errors, and you saw Max, you saw Colton, you saw Landon Roberts, um, I saw Adam Butler, I think it was Jeremy Chin, but go up to guys that were having some mental mistakes and, smack them on the rear, talk with them a little bit. Like these were veterans making a point to guys. Hey, come on now. Zero in, focus in, stay competitive, stay consistent. Those are things that I guarantee you the coaches are going to notice, and they're going to see, and they're going to stick out in a good way, that your veterans are leading your team saying, you've got to get through this wall, go for it. I'm going to talk about a couple of things. I told you I was going to talk about aches, pains, battles, and drama. And I think you will appreciate this one. So Jackson Powers Johnson was getting some reps today on the second string. And all of a sudden, people must have tweeted it out, because I get in from practice and my email box is blowing up with people. Hondo heard JPJ is second stringer now. So let me just make this point clear. I'm certainly not Chip Kelly or Pete Carroll. I struggle internally to find a way that JPJ is not one of the top 3 interior offense on this line. I think that's very clear that he is. Okay, I want to make that point very, very clear. And I'm going to give out my projected depth chart at the end of camp. And if I had to give out my depth chart today, he would be a starter at one of the interior offensive line positions. So we'll make that point clear. But he also came back and got some reps with the ones too. The point is when you have coaches that want a competitive camp, you have to understand they're moving guys around. How do guys respond? Well, how do other guys do? Okay, I've got this guy with my 2s. I want to put him up at the 1s. I want to see how he does with the 1s. And so when you are a team like the Raiders that allow fans to come to a lot of the practices, and you see those type of tweets, doesn't mean they're untruthful. Don't read into it and assume drama. Again, I don't think JPJ has lost his spot on the starting line. Let's make that real clear. But it doesn't mean they're not giving other guys reps. I mean, think about this one. Thurman Thomas, Barry Sanders sat behind him and didn't really get a chance to compete with him. And God bless Thurm, because he may have lost his job in college and never had the pro career he did. But this staff wants to overturn and look under every rock. Is there somebody here we're not seeing? Let's give them some reps. Lots of guys are getting lots of reps against a lot of different people. So I would not make it drama filled. I am going to also tell you, though, a little bit of drama here. So I have told you many times, we do not give away schematics or anything scheme oriented unless the coaches do. All right, so let me make something up that's completely, okay, let's say the Raiders were to put Adam Butler at quarterback in the goal line to run the ball in like the fridge, which they've not done. Okay. We may tell you, they're getting really creative in the red zone. They're doing a lot of things that are interesting, but we're not going to tell you they're putting Adam Butler at quarterback, which they're not. Okay. So what happens is when you allude to creativity, people then assume, and that's dangerous. Don't do that. Let me just say this to you. Old school football is back, and I am 54 years old, and I want to explain to you what I mean by that. When I was growing up as a boy, the Raiders were the toughest team in the league and the most creative. They were constantly doing things outside the box, outside the norm of the NFL to try to create an advantage for them. Pete Carroll, and in the first 5 years I covered this team, they were not greatly creative at all. It was kind of baffling. And this year, Pete has taken off any restrictions on Chip Kelly and Patrick Graham. And they have been battling. And both of them have been incredibly creative with scheme, plays, personnel, and everything else. Not going to get into any details to hurt the Raiders. But Al Davis would be proud because this is old school Raider ball right now. This is what the Raiders were built on, that toughness, that competitive edge, that fight, that fire, all of it. And I think a lot of you, do I expect that you'll see it in the preseason? I don't. Why show it? But when the Raiders go marching into, Boston to take on the Patriots, I expect you're going to see some things that, as a Raider fan, you're going to be really excited. If you're a Raider fan, you're going to be like, wow, okay, I've been wanting to see this. Again, seeing a lot of things in camp that I know Raider fans have been screaming about, wanting to see, and creativity, quite frankly, from Chip Kelly, Patrick Graham, and Tom McMahon with special teams. They have extremely pushed the envelope. Now, some of it I don't expect we'll ever see. But I still think they're experimenting and trying with everything that they can to see how they can make this team better, how they can push this team to be better, and what they can find of it. Last thing I want to talk about is Tom Brady was at practice today watching it, and it's really funny because most of the guys have met him now, but you can still, there was one, this is how I noticed he was there. There was one player that touched another player and pointed. And so I naturally just looked, and he was pointing, hey, there's Tom Brady. And I just think it's funny, the Brady effect. He's the greatest quarterback of all time. Many people think the greatest player of all time. And so his presence means something. Guys notice that. Guys see that. Guys pay attention to it, and guys watch it. So again, leaving camp today, there's battles on every side of the ball and on special teams. I don't think that they've settled in at all on who's going to be their punt and kick returner. Don't think they've settled on that at all. I think there's battles at wide receiver. I think it's Jacoby, Dante, and Trey are your starters, but Jack Besh is making it. And I think right now, Alex Bachman's made it. For sure. He makes plays. I mean, today, Ian Thomas may have had the best practice of any of the tight ends. Ian Thomas looked phenomenal today. And I told you guys all before camp, I expected him to make it. But, he was unbelievable today. Just looking at my notes here of anything in particular I wanted to. I'll tell you another one that has really stood out. Two more guys. But Greedy Vance has played really well. What a name, right? Love that name. Greedy Vance. He's played really, really well. But I'm going to tell you another one. Carter Runyon. Carter Runyon. He's been impressive. That tight end has been impressive. So there's a lot of talent on this team and a lot of battles. Make sure you keep attention to it. Don't forget tomorrow, 1 o'clock, Allegiant Stadium, mock game. I really encourage you all to go. It's going to be a great experience. Hope to see a bunch of you there. You're going to really, really enjoy it as we get ready for Seattle next week for the first preseason game. Follow me on Threads and IG when you go to Hondo SR. Follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Hondo Carpenter, and always si.com/NFL/Raiders, where we are pumping out for you massive amounts of information that you won't get anywhere else. Thanks, everybody.